We are moving on to topic 2, lesson 1, civilization emerges in Mesopotamia. Please get your digital notebook open, and I would recommend you using this video, but if you want to, you can go ahead and open Savas. We are going to start with the 8 vocab words. Please get them defined in your digital notebook. Fertile Crescent, a region with good conditions for growing crops that stretches from the Mediterranean coast east through Mesopotamia to the Persian Gulf. Mesopotamia, wide flat plain in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in present-day Iraq. Irrigate, to supply water to. City-state, independent state consisting of a city and its surrounding territory. Barter, trading system in which people exchange goods directly without using money. Polytheism, worship of many gods or deities. Ziggurat, brick, pyramid-shaped Mesopotamian temple. And cuneiform, Mesopotamian system of writing that uses triangular shaped symbols to stand for ideas or things. Take 8 minutes and get these 8 vocab words defined. All right, let's move on to page 3 of our digital notebook and begin lesson 1.
Lesson 1. Civilization emerges in Mesopotamia. The Fertile Crescent is a region of the Middle East that stretches in a large crescent-shaped curve from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. The Fertile Crescent includes Mesopotamia, a wide, flat plain in present-day Iraq. This plain lies between 2 great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. In fact, Mesopotamia means land between the rivers in Greek. Here, thousands of years ago, the world's first civilization began to form. This was the civilization of Sumer.
Number 1 on page 3, you can see that it is a quiz question. The term Mesopotamia refers to land between what 2 rivers? This is worth 2 points because it is 2 rivers. So go ahead and get the name of those 2 rivers now. All right, let's continue on by watching this video.
Imagine that you're looking for a place for your people to live. You come to a valley between 2 rivers. The soil is rich, perfect for growing crops to feed your people. So you settle in the valley. But there's a problem. Summers are hot and dry, and your crops might wither and die. And the rivers flood in the spring, leaving behind moist, fertile soil, but sometimes causing floods and even washing away whole villages. What should you do? Leave the fertile valley or try to adapt? This was the dilemma facing the Sumerians. They lived in the Fertile Crescent, which stretched from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was known as Mesopotamia. Sumer was at the southern end of the crescent in what is modern-day Iraq. So, how do you cope with these challenges? Technology. Technology, both then and now, means the practical application of knowledge to accomplish a task. The Sumerians used increasingly specialized knowledge to manage the problems caused by flooding and drought. To control flooding, they built embankments or earthen walls along the Euphrates River. They built villages on man-made mounds of dirt to keep them from being washed away during the spring floods. But they still had to find a technology that would let them bring water to their crops in the hot, dry summer. The solution to the problem was canals. Embankments rose above the ground and canals were dug into the ground. A system of canals could move water from the river to wherever it was needed, keeping large areas of farmland moist all summer long. This very basic early technology is called irrigation. So the Sumerians adapted to their location. They didn't have to keep moving from place to place, constantly starting over. This meant they had time to invent things that helped them increase their food supply. Things such as the plow and a seed funnel that planted seeds at the same time the field was being plowed. They made great advancements, including their invention of the wheel. Here's a pattern that repeats itself throughout history. When food is abundant, populations grow and civilization develops. So why did the Sumerians' civilization develop? Think for a minute about the cooperation and organization needed to build and maintain a system of embankments and canals, and the laws it would take to decide who gets water and when. That means some sort of government. Now, think about this. Why did the Sumerians' transformations of their environment and society lead to the development of a written language?
All right, let's move on. I am actually going to put the digital textbook on the left. I forgot to do that to start off so that if you are using my video and you need to shrink it, you can still see this e-text. So let's move on to page 4 of your digital notebook and click next one time in the e-text. Once this black highlights and annotation bar leaves, I will be able to get rid of this wall that's covering my text. And let's begin.
How was agriculture important in Mesopotamia? As its name suggests, the Fertile Crescent soil is rich and fertile. Some of the most productive land in the region is in Mesopotamia. This rich soil allowed Sumerian farmers to grow many grains and vegetables. They also raised sheep, goats, and cattle. Geography of Mesopotamia. Northern Mesopotamia includes the foothills of the Taurus and Zagros mountain chains. To the south, these foothills flatten into plains that stretch southeast toward the Persian Gulf. Southern Mesopotamia is a hot, dry region with little rainfall. At first glance, the land looks like a desert, but the soils are not desert soils. In fact, they are rich with nutrients. The southern part of Mesopotamia owes its good soil to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These rivers begin in the mountains of southeastern Turkey and flow south and east through present-day Iraq. The rivers carry fine, fertile soil called silt down from the mountains. Each spring, the rivers flood their banks, spreading floodwaters and silt across the plain. When the floods end, they leave behind a fresh layer of moist, fertile earth that is perfect for growing crops. But Mesopotamia's geography also gave Sumerian farmers many challenges. The heavy spring floods could wash away crops and even whole villages. During the summer, the hot sun baked the ground rock hard. With little rain for months, plants died.
Number 1 on page 4 of your digital notebook. How could the floods of Tigris and Euphrates rivers be both helpful and harmful? So this is worth 2 points. You need to give me one thing that these rivers could be helpful with, and also one thing that the rivers could do harm to the land with.
Farming the land. Despite these challenges, the Sumerians used technology to turn Mesopotamia into productive farmland. Remember that technology is the practical application of knowledge to accomplish a task. The Sumerians used technology to irrigate or supply water to their crops. They dug many miles of irrigation canals to bring water from the rivers to their fields. With irrigation, people transformed their environment so that crops could still get water during the hot, dry summer. People began settling in new areas where irrigation made growing crops possible, turning land into fields and building homes. Sumerians also developed a new way of planting crops. Earlier farmers used a wooden plow pulled by oxen when planting. The plow cut a long furrow or trench in the soil. Then the farmers dropped seeds into the furrow. But Sumerian farmers developed a seed funnel that they attached to their plows. As the plow moved forward, seeds automatically dropped from the funnel into the soil. This made planting faster and easier.
We have moved on to page 5 of your digital notebook. Number 1, what technology did the Sumerians use to supply water to their crops? You will find that answer in this green highlighted paragraph. Number 2, what did Sumerian farmers invent to make planting seeds easier? In this blue highlighted paragraph, you will find that answer. All right, let's move on to the next page, and we will move on to page 6. We're actually going to click next one more time, as we are not going to look at the interactive map in our digital notebook. But if you click on these red dots, it tells you about that area. So you are more than welcome to go and look at this map of Mesopotamia. We have moved on to page 6 in your digital notebook, waiting for that to leave so I could move the wall. So let's listen to this.
City-states of Sumer. Better agricultural techniques helped the Sumerians produce more food. With a dependable food supply, the population began to grow. Around 3400 BCE, cities started to form in southern Mesopotamia. These cities depended on nearby rivers for irrigation to grow crops to support the growing populations. Other major civilizations, such as the Harappa along the Indus River and the Chinese along the Huang River, formed in river valleys for the same reason.
Number 1 on page 6 of your digital notebook. What caused Sumer's population to grow? You will find that answer in this green highlighted paragraph. Let's continue on.
Cities emerge. The first Mesopotamian city was Uruk. Uruk had a population of more than 40,000 people. Other early cities were Lagash, and Nippur. Some cities grew large and powerful. They became the world's first city-states. A city-state is an independent state that includes a city and its surrounding territory. Each Sumerian city-state had its own government and laws, and each had its own main god. Cities had walls and densely packed houses.
So they actually pronounce what I have been pronouncing Uruk. They say Uruk. So U and then Ruk. Another term for a city and the surrounding land it controls is, this is a quiz question, you will find that answer in this yellow circled paragraph. Let's move on to page 7 of our digital notebook.
Trade. Each city-state was a center of trade. Southern Mesopotamia had fertile soil, but it had little wood or stone and no metal ores. Sumerians traveled far to find these important resources. Most trade was done by barter. Barter is a trading system in which people exchange goods directly without using money. Early traders often used the rivers and major canals to transport their goods. They loaded goods onto barges or large rafts. Workers on land used ropes to pull the barges along the water. As they had done with agriculture, the Sumerians used new technologies to make trade easier. For example, the Sumerians invented the wheel, which they used on their carts. Many historians include the wheel as one of the most important discoveries of all time. Sumerians also used sails on their boats. With wheeled carts and sailboats, they could more easily transport barley, wheat, dates, and cloth to faraway lands. They could also bring home trade goods like lumber, metals, and precious stones.
Number 3, what 2 inventions made trade easier? This is worth 2 points, so please make sure you have both inventions here. This is worth 2 points in this digital notebook. You will find that answer in this pink highlighted paragraph.
Social classes. The Sumerians developed a social order with 3 classes. People of each class had distinct roles within Sumerian society. The upper class included the ruler, his top officials, powerful priests, wealthy merchants, and owners of large plots of land. Farmers and skilled workers made up the middle class. The lowest class was mostly enslaved peoples. The city-states' governments and Sumerian religious beliefs, which were firmly connected, helped support this social order. The rise of social classes was a new development for human societies. Men generally had a higher social position than women, but women in the higher class could gain power. Some could be priestesses, for example, and when kings emerged, their wives had some power.
All right, right here you'll see the Sumerian social hierarchy. So for the most part, the ruling family, the high priest, the leading officials were always at the top. Then you had the next class, social class of your priests, your merchants, people who sold things, scribes or people who could write, artisans or people who made things. They would be in the middle social class. And then the bottom class is your slaves and your peasant farmers. So the lowest class is always going to be your slaves because they do not have freedom. They do not have any power at all. So let's look at number 4. Who made up the 3 social classes in Sumer? This is worth 3 points. This digital notebook itself is worth quite a bit, being 30 points. We normally don't have them worth that many points, but this has lots of different answers. So give me one person, one type of person from each class. I should have 3 answers here. You will find the answer in this green highlighted paragraph, or you can use this pyramid below. It is up to you. Let's go to the next digital notebook page, page 8, and let's click next. Please notice that both questions on page 8 are highlighted in yellow, and we know by now that that means that they are quiz questions.
What role did religion have in Sumerian society? Like most ancient peoples, the Sumerians practiced polytheism, the belief in more than one god. Sumerians believed these gods controlled every aspect of life, including rain, wind, and other elements of nature. Some gods represented agriculture or other activities. Sumerians believed that the gods behaved much like people. They thought that the gods ate, drank, slept, and married. However, Sumerians also believed that the gods lived forever and had great power. If the gods were happy with people's prayers and offerings, they might bring good fortune to the city. If not, they might bring war, floods, or other disasters. As a result, Sumerians felt that they needed to keep the gods happy in order for their cities to grow and prosper. Sumerians believed that only priests knew how to communicate with the gods. They depended on priests to tell them what the gods wanted. As a result, priests had an important role in Sumerian society. Their connection with the gods brought peace and social order. In larger Sumerian cities, temples were pyramid-shaped brick towers known as ziggurats. The largest ziggurats were 7 stories tall. They rose upward in steps, with each level smaller than the one below. Some were filled with beautiful paintings and statues. The area around a temple often included farmland controlled by the temple. Priests kept goods belonging to temples in large storehouses.
Number 1. Why did priests play an important role in Sumerian city-states? You'll find that answer in this first circled yellow paragraph. Number 2. A ziggurat is a type of, you'll find that answer in this second yellow circled paragraph. Let's move on to page 9 of your digital notebook. We do need to click Next on the e-text, and please notice number 1 is highlighted in yellow.
What was the Sumerian writing system like? Sumerian priests needed a system to keep track of their stored goods. At first, they drew pictographs on clay. Pictographs are simple pictures that represent objects. To record the number of fish given to a temple, for example, Sumerian priests drew a fish. Then they added marks to represent the number of fish. In time, this way of keeping records developed into the world's first system of writing. Cuneiform. By 3100 BCE, Sumerian priests had created a new writing system called cuneiform. Cuneiform is a system of writing that uses triangular-shaped symbols to stand for words, ideas, or sounds. Cuneiform involved pressing wedge-shaped marks into clay tablets. By combining the marks in different ways, Sumerians could create thousands of symbols.
Number 1. In cuneiform, Sumerian scribes used what to represent words, sounds, or ideas? You will find that answer in these 2 circled yellow paragraphs. Let's continue on.
Epic of Gilgamesh. Cuneiform was originally used to record sales, taxes, and agreements. Later, Sumerians began to use writing for more than record keeping. The Epic of Gilgamesh, which was written in cuneiform on 12 clay tablets, told the story of a hero. The stories about Gilgamesh are myths, or made-up tales of gods and heroes. However, some scholars believe that Gilgamesh may have been a real king. These scholars think that he ruled the Sumerian city-state of Uruk sometime after 3000 BCE.
Number 2. How many clay tablets was the Epic of Gilgamesh written on? You'll find that answer in this green highlighted paragraph. If we look at the bottom of this e-text page, it talks about cuneiform and the stages of development and how they used and what they did. Talks about as far back as 8000 BC, where Sumerians began using different shaped clay tokens to represent various items of exchange, such as sheep or bread. It then moved into around 3500 BCE, where Sumerians began to press the tokens into clay tablets to make signs. They also began to mark the clay with a sharp tool called a stylus. In 3100 BCE, Sumerians created a true writing system that included symbols that represented words or syllables. Scribes recorded economic exchanges, myths, prayers, and laws. So this is your first writing system. Let's turn the page. We're moving on to the next page in the e-text and moving on to page 10 in your digital notebook.
How did Sumerian government work? The first leaders of Sumerian city-states were priests, not kings. But when conflicts arose among city-states, the way cities were ruled began to change.
Number 1, who originally ruled the city-states? Hint, it was not kings. You'll find that answer in these 2 green highlighted sentences. Let's continue on.
Development of kingship. As city-states grew, people in different cities began to argue with one another over the control of land and water. These conflicts sometimes led to war. In times of war, priests helped choose the best person to lead the city-state into battle. After the war was over, this leader was expected to give up his power and return to normal life. But some of these military leaders kept control of the city-states even after war ended. These military leaders became the first kings. Kings and priests. To stay in power, kings needed the support of the priests. So kings were careful to respect the priests' rights and powers. In turn, priests declared that the gods had sent the king to rule the city. This idea that kings were chosen by the gods became common in Sumer. Together, kings and priests created religious ceremonies that supported royal power. Sumerian kings eventually took over many jobs the priests once did. They hired workers to build new canals, temples, and roads. Each king also served as the city's chief lawmaker and judge. Written laws. Some rulers collected city laws into a law code or a written set of laws. The earliest known law code was issued around 2100 BCE by Ur-Nammu, the king of Ur. The Ur-Nammu law code included laws about marriage, slavery, and causing harm to other people. One law read, "If a man knocks out the eye of another man, he shall weigh out half a mina of silver." A mina is a unit of weight that varied over time but was approximately 1 pound.
Number 2, Sumerian kings hired workers to build what? List all 3, and this is going to be worth the 3 points. Again, this is a more heavily weighted digital notebook. It's worth a lot more points than some of your others. You'll find the answer in this blue highlighted 3 sentences. All right, let's move on to the last page, page 11 in your digital notebook, and the last page in your e-text. You'll see we have 2 questions remaining.
Sumerian achievements. Under the rule of priests and kings, Sumerians produced many advances in technology. You have already read about the Sumerians' improvements to farming, such as their use of irrigation and the invention of the seed plow. You have read about their development of cuneiform, which allowed them to keep records. Innovations like the wheel and the sail improved transportation. The Sumerians also made advances in mathematics and astronomy. Dividing an hour into 60 minutes and a minute into 60 seconds began with the Sumerians. They also divided the year into 12 months of 30 days each, much as we do today. Through trade, many of these Sumerian advances spread to other lands. Another important advance in technology was the development of bronze. The Sumerians were one of the first cultures to make bronze, which is made by mixing copper and tin. Bronze is a harder metal than copper, so it is better for making tools and weapons. Bronze weapons would later play an important role in the growth of cities into large, powerful states.
All right, you could actually, I was kind of reading this, you could actually include that in number 1. So what were the Sumerians' main achievements? Just give me one. It's anything in this pink highlighted text. Give me one of their many achievements. And number two, how did the Sumerians' achievements spread to other lands? Well, that you will find in this green highlighted sentence. How did these achievements spread throughout the land?